Hey guys, welcome back to Intelligent Faith 315. This is Pastor Jay. This is the third installment of a 5-part series we're doing, 5 reasons that make Christianity absolutely unique amongst all the 25 or so world religions that we know of. By way of review, reason number 1 is that Christianity is verifiable. We spoke about the areas of history, archaeology, and prophecy as 3 areas that we can look into and we can verify the historical or archaeological details that the writings of the Christian faith, which are the Old and New Testament, tell us about. And even the area of prophecy, you can actually look back into history and verify to see if any of these prophetic predictions actually came true. So it's a unique feature. A lot of worldviews, it's really unimportant if facts of history or archaeology or anything like that can be verified. Christianity, however, that's extremely important, as Paul points out in 1 Corinthians 15:17. If the resurrection of Jesus cannot be verified to be a historical fact, then the whole Christian faith basically is a useless enterprise, and everybody is living a sad dream. So Christianity is uniquely verifiable in those areas of history, archaeology, and prophecy, but also many others. Part 2 of our series was the fact that Christianity is compatible. In other words, when we walk out our door as Christians, the things that I would expect to find out in the world according to my worldview, I should be able to find them. If my worldview is true, I should be able to go out into my life, my everyday existence, and my doings and comings and goings, and I should encounter the things that my worldview teaches me are real and true. This is not the case in many, many worldviews, such as atheism, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. And many people don't realize that. They continue on in those worldviews, and that's living really inconsistently. But in Christianity, it actually is true that it fits perfectly and compatibly with everything that we do see in the world around us. And believe it or not, even with suffering, even with pain, even the problem of evil is compatible with the Christian worldview. And in many other worldviews, as a matter of fact, that is not compatible, but it is in the Christian worldview. What we did touch on, however, in that second teaching that Christianity is compatible is the laws of nature, the laws of morality, and the laws of logic. We discovered those things. We do discover those things as we walk out of our door, and we would expect to discover those things being Christians. Going out into the world, we would expect to find fine-tuning from a designer. We would expect to find laws of morality because God is a moral being and He has instilled principles of morality and objective morals within us. And God is also a God, a creator of reason and rationale, and He has therefore given to us principles of reason and logic, and we do indeed discover these. Today's the third installment, and we'll be discussing that Christianity, number 3, is uniquely central. What do I mean by this? Well, it does seem in the world that almost all religions, worldviews, and most major philosophies, they in a sense want a piece of Jesus. He seems to be one of the most in-demand historical and spiritual figures in history. Everybody has some type of belief about Jesus. It brings to mind in Matthew chapter 16 when Jesus took His disciples up to Caesarea Philippi and He asked them, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" They gave Him various answers, and then He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" So let me just show you what I mean a little bit by this. Even atheists, for example, have a place for Jesus in their worldview or their philosophy. You will find some atheists that don't believe in Jesus, but unfortunately, these are the most uninformed and really less read atheists in this area of research. Unfortunately, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins fall into this area. They seriously doubt the fact whether Christ ever even existed. There's at least 17 to 18 non-Christian historical sources that you can read and verify His existence. Everything from his life to His death, His impact through His life. You can verify this with historians such as Tacitus, Suetonius, Josephus, even Emperor Hadrian, the Gnostic literature, the Gospel of Barnabas, Gospel of Thomas, Marabar, Serapion, all kinds of non-Christian historical literature verifies Christ's existence. If you want, you can email me at jason@claycup.com and I'll send you some information on that. It's very easy to verify. But most atheists do acknowledge the fact that Christ existed. They just think that he was some kind of a Jewish revolutionary, kind of a spiritually mystical kind of a person. And though sincere, kind of misinformed. Atheism has a place for Jesus. What about Buddhism? Buddhism, invented by Siddhartha Gautama in the 500 BCs, thinks that Jesus is kind of following in the footsteps of the Buddha, that he's an enlightened teacher trying to get people in touch with the injustices and the suffering in the world, how to overcome that, and how to even come into contact with the transcendent, how to come into contact with the transcendent force that is behind all of reality. And so there are different forms of Buddhism. Some are atheistic, some are not, but they do have a very positive, high view of Jesus. What about Hinduism? Hinduism as well. Depending on who you talk to, most Hindus would probably tell you that Christ is either a bodhisattva, which is an enlightened teacher, a guru, which is a God-man, or some would even tell you he is an avatar, which is not one of the blue people from an alien home world like the recent movie showed us, but rather that an avatar is kind of a human representative of the spiritual force and power behind the world, Brahman, the all, the one. And so that Christ is basically viewed by most Hindus as a man who came to the world and he was able to unlock his full divine potential, and he was able to get in touch and yoke with Brahman, the all, and we should follow in his footsteps, realize our divine potential. And so they have a very high exalted place of Jesus as well. Even Islam has a place for Jesus. And so you start to see a pattern here that it's not whether people believe in Jesus, it's what do people believe about Jesus, because everybody has a special place for him at some point, somewhere. In Islam, for example, although Muhammad experiences various failures in the Quran, Muhammad never does any miracles, and Muhammad has a regular natural birth. Jesus, however, in the Quran, he has a virgin birth, he lives a sinless life, and he performs miracles. And he is held up as a very honorable and respected prophet of Islam. Muhammad is the seal of all the prophets in the Islamic faith, but Jesus of Nazareth is viewed as a very highly esteemed prophet. And they even believe in the Injil, which is the gospel of Jesus. They think it's been corrupted by the New Testament Christians, but they do have respect, and they supposedly honor Jesus as a very esteemed prophet in the Islamic faith. What about Mormonism? Mormonism also has a place for Jesus. It's a different Jesus. They say that Jesus is one of many gods. They say that Elohim and his council of gods living on a distant planet. Jesus was one of these gods. He is a spirit brother of Lucifer. Jesus had a plan to save humanity. He came down, had a physical sexual union with Mary. I'm sorry. God, Elohim, who is Adam, become God, had a physical sexual union with Mary. Jesus was the offspring of this sexual union. And so Jesus himself, he realized his divine potential, as Mormons teach, that men can become gods. It's called the law of eternal progression. And Jesus himself, he had many wives, at least 3. Mary Magdalene, Mary the brother of Lazarus, and I believe another. Many, many children. And so they have a very bizarre, unorthodox view of Jesus. It's not the biblical Jesus. They actually believe in polytheism, that Jesus is one of many gods, and that a good, faithful Mormon man, he himself can become a god and can inherit his own celestial universe and so forth. But even the Mormon church has a place for Jesus. Jehovah's Witnesses as well, they believe in Jesus, not the biblical one, but they have their version of Jesus. They believe that he is the first creation of God. They believe in an ancient heresy called Arianism. Arius was a heretic from early church history who basically taught that Jesus is not divine. He's rather the first creation of God. Some Jehovah's Witnesses teach that he's actually Michael the Archangel. So they respect him, they revere him, and they do believe he died on the cross for our sins, but his blood that was shed is not sufficient for atonement. You need to add good works on top of that. So as you can see, and I haven't exhausted the list, it seems like everybody really wants a piece of Jesus. That he is, as I said, one of the most actually in-demand spiritual religious teacher and historical figure really in history. But only in biblical Christianity do we find that Jesus is not on the outside, on the periphery of the worldview or the philosophy, but he's at the very center. And of course, it makes sense that Christ is the center of Christianity. At least he should be. There's seem to be forms of Christianity popping up where Christ himself is even on the periphery. But biblical Christianity has Jesus at its focus, at its center. And it's not just that he is the center of our faith. He is our faith. We believe in him, we look to him, we trust him, we honor him, and we worship him. We believe that he is the God-man who has come to the earth with a divine nature, took upon himself a human nature as well, and he died in our place to pay for our sins. But all I'm trying to say is that if all the world religions and worldviews have a place for Jesus, why not start your search with the worldview that has Christ at its very center as the focal point of its belief, a worldview that is centralized on Jesus Christ? It would be a good use of your time. It'd probably be the best place to start. And if you find things in Christianity that you find are incompatible, contradictions, errors, blatant mistakes, then just leave it. But I think it's a great place to start. So that also is a very unique feature of the Christian faith. It is central. So we'll keep going with this teaching series. And until next time, remember, have an intelligent faith.